Hello, church. As always, it's good to be with you on whatever day you're catching this, but it's Monday morning for most people. I had a chance yesterday to celebrate my 20th year anniversary at Georgianna, and I just want to take a moment, if you weren't with us, for me to thank you, the church, for 20 years of patience and kindness and love towards my family. And it was a great place to raise our kids, and you were such a valuable part of who our family was. And so thank you for that. And got a little bit more time at Georgianna, but I'm certainly proud of the fact that we got to 20 years, but we did it together. It wasn't anything that I did by myself. So we find ourselves back in the book of Colossians in a fascinating passage. So the last couple of weeks, we've kind of been talking about the negative things that we're to avoid. Like a couple of weeks ago, and even yesterday's sermon, we talked about the power of the tongue to do evil. And so now Paul comes back and gives us some examples of what it looks like to put on a godly spirit. And so picking it up in verse 12, it says this: "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any one of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." So let me say a few things about what's going on here. There's really 4 or 5 key lessons in here. First of all, Paul reminds them they're a chosen people. And what it means by that is that you're not a random people. God doesn't accidentally take you on as a child or as an heir in the kingdom. It's purposeful. God desires you. It's the purpose behind John 3:16, is that God sent his one and only son as an atoning sacrifice in order to what? To choose you and to redeem you from your sins. So the starting place for Paul is a place of chosenness. And then it's interesting that what he uses a word that says clothe yourselves. And then he talks about what you clothe yourselves with compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience. And aren't these the virtues of Christ? Aren't these holy virtues? But he's very intentional about the way he phrased that. He says, you shouldn't just become a person that has these virtues. You shouldn't just become a person that has gentleness in their nature. Part of what he's saying is you have to clothe yourself. And so the metaphor and imagery is this, is that you are to get up every day just as you do now, just as you would not or should not leave the house without any clothes on. You should clothe yourself and clothe yourselves with these virtues. This is the contrast to the list he gave a few verses before about what the negative things that come from living in the world, right? So clothe yourselves, he says. And then he says this. He says, hang in there with each other. Bear with one another. Isn't that a word we need to hear in today's culture and society? Hang in there with one another. Bear each other's burdens. And then he's got kind of a part 2 to that. And then he says, forgive people. But the standard is based on the forgiveness that Jesus exercised towards you. So he says, listen, be patient, hang in there with other people, but then forgive those who have grievances against you, and you against them, just as Christ forgave you. And then the next part is, he says, there's a glue. There's a glue that binds all these things together, and that glue is love. But that glue that binds us all together is for that purpose. It is to create unity. Church, there's no denying we're 6 months from another what I believe will be a volatile election season, right? And I'm going to be driving for the next 6 months that nothing comes between us, that unity is what drives our church. Unity around who Christ is, not around political affiliations, not around cultural pressures, around Christ. Here's the thought I want to leave you today is that I want you to think about this. I think faith is a full contact sport. I think you had to put all your pads on to enter the kingdom work every day because it's a contact sport, meaning that you're going to bump up against other people and you bump up against God, and all that contact is where love is exchanged. And this is what we're seeking as Paul tries to pressure the Colossians in a world where cultural temptations are high, where false teaching is prevalent. You got to put on your full pads and go into the kingdom. It's a contact sport, right? So I hope you will study this week. There are four distinct parts of this. Look at each one and see how it applies to your life. And never forget that God chose you. It's not random. His love for you drove him to choose you for redemption. Church, I love you, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Have an awesome week.